You can go ahead and start.
Thank you, Jerry. Good evening, everyone. This is a meeting of the Citizens Advisory Committee for Capital Expenditures. Today is March 5th, 2026. Welcome back. As you recall from our previous meetings, we've been systematically working through our capital needs inventory. And I'm going to share right now where we are. We've basically gone through the top half of all these needs: streets, bridges, parks, and fire department and such. We are now near the end of our presentations, where we're focusing on municipal buildings as well as vehicle needs. I know we have a number of folks from both BPS, our engineering department, our equipment services division. We also have a few folks from the circuit court that will be presenting on capital needs for the court buildings. And then we're going to just wrap it up with some additional requests from the street department regarding not streets and bridges, but particular facilities within streets and within the street department that we're going to be talking about. So I know Rich is off location this evening, and so we're going to start with BPS. Rich, are you with us? Yeah, Rich is here. I tell you what, Rich, why don't you start us off, and then we'll follow your lead into the other categories.
Okay, sounds great, Paul. And thanks everybody for being here again this evening. Certainly appreciate your time. So at the end of the last meeting, there was a great question that popped up in the chat, and that was, what about City Hall? So when we're talking about other municipal buildings, that is probably has one of the largest asks on the list for attachment G. So what I wanted to do before I actually talk about the roofing project is just give you just a little bit of information about some of the things that we've done at City Hall. So we have, over the past number of years, completed an all-inclusive, fully ADA compliant fire alarm system for about $2 million. That system that was in the building hadn't operated fully for many, many years. We have done a substantial amount of HVAC modernization. And if you know much about City Hall, the offices are generally cooled and heated on their own. And actually the common areas are just heated. So we've worked with a number of the different departments to get upgraded HVAC as well as plumbing work. We've done some substantial work in the Board of Aldermen's chambers. We've done air quality improvements. We've also done a series of technology upgrades with audio and video technology improvements to help them better serve their mission. We've done some electrical and power reliability upgrades throughout City Hall. And then, one thing I do want to talk about is we've done a lot of lighting enhancements with new LED lighting. We've done some in the general areas of City Hall, completed that, as well as in the mayor's suite and many of the individual offices. So I want you to know that we do look at City Hall and we do things there as frugally as we can, but also we want to maintain its, historical significance and things of that nature. So when we're working there, we're very particular about all those type of things. Also, we have redone some amount of the artwork, and I'm sure you all are aware that that building contains a significant amount of historical artwork in many of the hallways and boardrooms and corridors, and even in the top of the rotunda. So that brings us to the City Hall roofing improvements. So the project on here is for $3 million, but I want to talk just a little bit about that. So the City Hall roof is made up of multiple different materials. It is made up of slate tiles, terracotta tiles, and TPO, which is a membrane type roofing. And so the TPO was recently replaced with a 65 mil TPO. And so it is in very good shape and pretty well set for the next 25 years. However, the slate and the terracotta that are on the building are in excess of about 125 years. And so both of those materials generally are good, useful life of up to about 100 years. generally we wouldn't even try to replace the roofing if we didn't have to chase so many leaks. We have had leaks on the magnitude over the past couple of years of about four or $500,000. We're constantly chasing leaks on that roof in the valleys and gutters and downspouts and so forth throughout the building. So in order to replace the entire roof on that building, we came up with an estimate somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to $30 million. And so we know that it is never going to be probably available to get that amount of money at one time. So what we're asking for here is a phased approach where we could have anything up to $3 million for the first phase of working on the slate and terracotta tile replacement on City Hall. I will stop there with that and see if there's any questions on City Hall or the roof at City Hall.
Okay, let's see. Couple chats. The roof leaks. Who can roof repair? Not a quick. Okay, yeah. That's just. Are there alternative materials that are historically accurate that could be used? Another way, a way of bringing the cost down for those repairs.
So I would say to you that there may be, but in order to do that, we would have to do a full replacement at one time. And I think the appetite for somewhere around 15 to $20 million to do a full replacement, even if it was a $10 million replacement, would be very, very difficult. The other thing that I will say about this is the slate and the terracotta tiles, again, like I said, have a useful life of 100 years. So again, we would like to put the materials back the way they're on the building, if at all possible. In a phased approach, we have to put back like in kind materials, and it would last us for another 100 years if we do it. But certainly we would explore all the options that we could anytime to save money.
Mr. Butler, I see your hand's raised.
Yes, thank you. A question for you, Rich. A couple questions, actually. I think I just heard implied in your current remarks that CRO is involved in this process. Is that right?
Yes, they're involved. Just like any private citizen, no matter what we do as a city entity, we involve CRO completely.
Just wanted to touch base on that. My other comment would be, City Hall, as someone who's lived across, the country and seen any number of city halls, we have one of the most magnificent city halls in the country. One of the things I think we could do to enhance its appearance very quickly, and looking for your opinion on this, is could we just power wash the outside of the building to, bring it back to, just to get the dirt off it?
So, that is a wonderful, wonderful question. And I'm going to answer that with a little bit of detail. When Francis Slay first appointed me in 2009, one of the very first things that he specifically asked me to look into was what it would take to clean the outside of City Hall. As you're probably all aware, the building is composed of red granite, sandstone, and limestone. The latter two being very soft and porous. And I will also tell you that the outside of that building has never been sealed, and that's why it wicks in moisture, and that's why it retains dirt. Most of the dirt that is there is from early steamboats and early power plants in the early days of the city. Okay, so now that we got that out, we looked at what it would take to do this. We, back in about 2009, had a cost estimate of around $27 million, if I recall properly. And the thing is, you have to be extremely careful with the limestone, because the limestone on the windowsills, the limestone on all these little features around all the windows is very brittle. It's weathered. It's broken in many places. So yes, we need to do that. Yes, we should do that. I just will tell you, it would be a tremendous drink of water to do that. And, there was a fundraising effort at one time to do it, and the fundraising effort more or less dissipated. So I would say it's probably by now a $30 million effort, and we would have to look at phasing that. And, there's so many needs in the city that sometimes it looks a little a little bit verbose, if you will, to clean your own building before you do other things. But it is a great point, and I'm glad you brought it up.
So Rich, one closing comment. So what I just heard is, so we need 30 million for the roof. We need 30 million to, clean the front of the building. That's a 60 million ask, and God knows what else we need. I saw some of the early other line items. At what point does it, do we get to that point where we let it fall too far into disrepair to where we can't do anything with it, and now we're faced with, an even worse alternative, potentially, taking it down and replacing it?
Yeah. And so that, again, I agree with you. I think and what we try to do is to do the critical needs that we can absolutely do to keep the building functioning as a city hall. Keep the lights on, keep the heat on, keep the water flowing, and all those type of things there. I would say, the roof is a little bit different than cleaning the building because obviously the roof is water penetration. Now you're still getting water penetration on the sides of the building. I think when you get into a situation like this, there has to be some kind of a drive, philanthropic drive from, private donors, so forth, just like the Soldiers Memorial. The Soldiers Memorial fell into a relatively disrepaired situation. The Taylor Family Foundation came in with about a 45 million dollar program. They redid the entire Soldiers Memorial, and I'm sure you all know it's glorious. So I think this is going to take a community to come in and say, hey, we need to clean this building up. We need to seal this building for perpetuity. But I think that's what it's really going to take because when you have $229 million in capital needs, it's awfully hard to say, I'm not going to fix a bridge. I'm not going to do something else because I need to clean and seal a building. And that's really what the real reality of it is.
Well, completely agree with your assessment, Rich, and maybe we can take offline some of the historical efforts to, raise some funds from the private sector. I'd be interested in seeing if, what that looks like and seeing if there's an opportunity to maybe, resurrect some of that initiative.
I would love to do that. Please give me a call and we can certainly talk about it. I think probably, the mayor would need to be behind this and be something that, she'd lead the charge on. I know Francis Slade talked about it. I just know they never reached the pinnacle of really getting enough to do the job. So, but yeah, great, great questions.
Thanks, Rich.
All right, Rich, did you want to go on others or?
No, I think I'm good with that one. I think that is the biggest one that is on the list. The other one is a switchgear at 1520 Market. I don't think I have to say too much there. It's beyond its useful life. Electrical switchgear powers the building. It was put in the building when the building was built, and it's beyond its useful life and needs to be replaced. So it's the power for the building that connects Dameron. And with that, if there's no questions, I will mute myself and um, watch the rest of the presentations.
Okay, did you want to go, did you want to stay for did you want to go directly into fleet or did you want to, should we finish building with courts?
It is really up to you one way or
Okay.
the other. You can do either
All right,
or.
I see Judge McGraw is online, so let's continue with the buildings. We do have Judge Christopher McGraw from the 22nd Circuit here to talk about all the building needs in the courts that have, which is the other side of Market Street from City Hall. Judge McGraw, I'll give you the floor. They do. Oh, wait a minute. Before I do that, I see a couple of questions. And just may want to make sure. Good plug. You can donate to City Hall. Please fix the doors at 1529 Market. Okay. All right. All right. Judge McGraw, I know you have a presentation loaded up. I will stop sharing my screen and I'll give it over. I think maybe Amanda was going to do that, and I'll give it the floor to you. And you got to unmute though. Judge, you're muted.
Am I unmuted?
Yeah, there you go. There you
Okay.
go.
I I hope we have Amanda
Yes.
on board. Okay,
Yes, I'm
great.
here.
Because I'm incapable of actually presenting a PowerPoint on my own, as I'm a caveman lawyer. So I before we launch into this presentation, I just want to thank the Citizens Advisory Committee for allowing us to make this presentation. My term as presiding judge will end at the end of this year, so I won't be back next year. But I will tell you from last year's experience and this year's experience, I have great optimism for the city, given seeing how all these different bodies work together. I really do appreciate the allowing us to give you this sort of input. And so we do have a presentation for you. Just to give you a kind of an overview of it, is that sort of a brief discussion about the three city buildings that we have, the Cahill building, the Carnahan, and the juvenile facilities. And then we'll talk about court modernization. We'll talk about the facade. We'll talk about the juvenile court and some of the non-critical needs, and then sort of what I see as sort of the future, the future expenditures. I think that the courts will be asking for, just and sort of it links in a lot to what Rich Bradley's already presented, given sort of the age of these buildings. So we'll start out with the Cahill building, which is which was formerly known as the Civil Courthouse building. It has 17 courtrooms in it, which functions as criminal, civil, and the family court. It also houses the public administrator, the sheriff's office, and it, more importantly for you all, it is where the jury supervisor's assembly room is where we summon all the jurors to. And we've hosted an open house last December, and we intend to do it again this coming December to showcase sort of what we've done with the jury supervisor, as well as the money that's been allocated for capital improvements, and particularly court modernization. But the jury supervisor is where most of the citizens of the city of St. Louis come here to the Cahill building, and those rooms. So it is occupied by not only by the court, but the sheriff and witnesses that are summoned to court, but more importantly, the jurors. And so this is a lot of time. And I've been over this last year, I've been getting a lot of feedback from jurors about sort of the courts, and actually it's been sort of good feedback and sort of the improvements that we made. In fact, Paul was over here last time. We were able to show some of what we've done with the allocations that have been made in improving the court system. The other building is across the street is the Carnahan building, and again it houses, I think it's 8 courtrooms that we house over in the Carnahan. Again, both doing civil and criminal work, jury trials, those sort of things. To buttress on to Rich Bradley's discussion, the civil courthouse, or the Cahill courthouse, was, I believe, opened in 1929. The Carnahan building was opened in 1935. It was a WPA project. So both of these buildings are nearing close to being 100 years old, and have many of the problems that, say, City Hall. In fact, the Civil Courthouse building, the site of the Civil Courthouse building was where City Hall was prior to the erection of that building. The Carnahan, again, has 8 courtrooms in it, active courtrooms in it, that handle civil and criminal cases. It also houses the circuit attorney's office, where victims come, and is our grand jury is also in the Carnahan Courthouse again, where victims and complaining witnesses will come. It also houses the sheriff's office. It also houses the public defender's office. And again, as I said, it's where we've created the grand jury is in the Carnahan building. So there's again an influx of the general public, not only court staff, but in addition to the other court functions, it also has non-court city departments that are, I believe, the 7th floor is utilized by the city personnel division at the Carnahan building. The third building that we're responsible for is the juvenile building, and I'll let Amanda, who was our former head of our juvenile courts or clerk of our juvenile courts, I'll let her discuss the juvenile division.
Great. Thanks, Judge. And just for the committee to know, I'm the court administrator for the circuit court currently. And then with me is Lewis Rucker. He's our facilities manager for the circuit court. So he can answer any technical questions that the committee may have. So in terms of the family court, this is located on North Vandevender. That comprises of 3 buildings, the main court building that you see pictured here of the front. And then there's the juvenile detention center, which is a secure facility. And then we have the juvenile annex that houses a lot of the offices for staff. The family court, just a little bit of an overview. It handles both delinquency and child protection cases. There's about 240 staff that are out there helping the community in those cases. Roughly 700 child protection cases, which means there are about 700 children in foster care in the city of St. Louis, and those staff help them in those cases. And then we typically house in juvenile detention anywhere between 30 and 40 detained youth. So youth under 18 years old who are alleged to have committed a crime. The court and annex buildings are accessed a lot like our other court buildings, general public. There's court hearings, there's meetings, there's supervised visits that are offered for families, as well as obviously the detention center. So moving into our proposed or our request, go to the next slide. It's gonna go, here we go. So courtroom modernization. This is now a project that's underway. We're lucky to receive city capital funds to start upgrading the 31 courtrooms, and the upgrades are for video, audio, digital, and technology infrastructure improvements to each courtroom and jury room. And this has been kind of a joint support effort. We've had a lot of input from the circuit attorney's office, the public defender's office, and the judges. So now that we have some progress made, we can show some pictures of the great additions to our courtrooms. This is a picture of Division 500. It's one of the first 6 courtrooms. We've been doing this in phases. So phase 1, we have completed 6 courtrooms just about a month ago. Phase 2 is another 6 courtrooms that is currently just begun this week to upgrade, and those will be completed by May 1st. So we do have 31 courtrooms in the circuit, and that is our long-term goal, is to upgrade all 31 courtrooms. You can kind of see the history of the funding on the slide. So what we're asking for is continued funding for phase 3. That would fund 6 to 8 additional courtrooms and jury rooms, and that is at $1,608,000 is the request.
So could I jump in there quickly, Amanda, as to this court modernization? Again, we've hosted a number of open houses to showcase this. I have received from a number of the bar. In fact, yesterday evening I was at a meeting where Jim Bennett, one of our esteemed attorneys, was speaking about how great these court modernization is. I spoke about it at the St. Louis County Bar Association dinner, and it was well received. But I will tell you, there's a couple things that I think from the citizen standpoint that would be well received as it relates to these court modernization. When we hosted the open house back in December, what was really well received was the fact that the court modernization does really two things that kind of brings us into the 21st century. Matt Devoti, when we were presenting this to the Board of Aldermen, he had stated there at that meeting that he tried his first case in like 1990, and he said the technology in the courtrooms in 1990 was exactly what the courtrooms are today. I suspect they were the technology that was in court in the 1960s and 50s and maybe even the 40s as to what was available to lawyers in order to presenting their case. I saw on the panel that Teresa Hess, one of our finest trial lawyers, was part of this committee. I bet she could also attest to that. That bringing it now up to speed to what in the 21st century not only is as a benefit to the trial bar and being able to present their cases, but it actually opens it up as a great equalizer. So individuals, say in the domestic court, that want to exhibit some text or something on their phone now can do it, but instead of just handing the phone to the judge, can integrate that into an actual court proceeding, and that is something that is sort of the great equalizer. So there's no longer the rich or poor of how they can present their cases. Everybody's on the same footing. Circuit attorney as well as the public defender or whomever are on the same footing. That was well received by, I would tell you, by the Board of Aldermen. But secondarily, if you notice in this modernized courtroom, there's a big screen that is set out in the courtroom that allows spectators actually to see what's happening in court, which is something that had not been done in the last 50 years in our courtroom. For the actual the mandate that these courts are open to the public and actually see the evidence, and that is something that sort of from a citizens advisory committee, I think is important to take into account, that now we are utilizing the technology that's available to really allow the courts to be more transparent. So I'm sorry, Amanda.
Oh, no, that's fine. It's a great addition. I'll show the next slide. As the judge pointed out, the comment that, these are original courtrooms. This is one on the left at Carnahan, and then one of the jury rooms at Carnahan. And this is the kind of a before picture. You'll see there, no screens, no mics. The audio is very poor. It's hard for court reporters and spectators and victims and jurors to hear the evidence, hear the testimony. And then, likewise in the jury rooms, there's no way to view digital evidence in the jury room. They turn in their cell phones. They don't have electronics. So if they want to view it, they have to go back in the courtroom and view it from a mobile TV setup. So then I'll move to the next slide, which is
Before we leave that slide, this is actually my courtroom in Division 19, which I can't wait to get back to after I finish my term as presiding judge in Division 1. That's my courtroom in Division 19. It's one of the largest courtrooms in our circuit. The acoustics are horrible. It was originally a federal courtroom. It was the courtroom for the three main courtrooms on the third floor of the Carnahan were the original courtrooms for the federal courts. And so it was built in a 1935 model. And yeah, the audio is horrible, and because it's a vast courtroom. It's a beautiful courtroom. It's in keeping with sort of the earlier discussion about trying to maintain this sort of historic nature. It's a beautiful courtroom. But one of the things that we realized once we modernized the first courtroom was that how are we going to get these virtual exhibits to the jury without bringing them back to the courtroom, which is in and of itself a difficult proposition because the jury cannot deliberate, cannot discuss the case if they're in the presence of anybody else. So when we would bring them down to watch videos, we would have to tell them, look, you can't talk about this case. So can you appreciate the fact that they'll be playing a video and they might want to move it back to a certain part of the video, but they can't discuss this in front of the sheriff who's running this video for them. If once we modernize the jury rooms, we're allowed to send it back to them and they can continue to deliberate while they look at the exhibits, which is really what was intended in the first place. Again, I apologize, Amanda.
No apologies. And this is an after, after courtroom picture of the same. It's not Division 19. This is Division 18. No, Division 17. So you'll see the monitors, and then I have the next slide is a little bit more telling. We're really proud of this. So you can see there's a podium or a lectern that has touch screens that allows and several inputs that allows any party, pro se litigant, law firm, circuit attorneys, any litigant to have a universal way to input their presentations, any digital evidence. There's annotation features. So the middle picture there is from the witness chair. So they also have a touch screen monitor that has annotation capabilities so that they can demonstrate, maybe mark up exhibits that will better help the jury to understand what is being conveyed and having more clear evidence. And then the picture on the left is kind of the audio rack. It's not as glamorous, but on top of that are tubs that are full of assisted hearing devices. We've talked about poor audio. This was a big feature that we wanted to include, making these hearings more ADA compliant, the ability to have interpreters use this equipment to interpret different languages and dialects to be more ADA compliant, and just help general hearing for jurors and litigants. So these are all included with each package from our vendor in the courtrooms. I think the other is video conferencing. That way, if there has to be some kind of hybrid or remote appearance by a party, it can be done. It's fully integrated into the software system, and it will all be very clear on audio and visual. Let's see. So the next capital request that we've flagged as critical is the Cahill or civil court, we call it CCD facade structural repairs. This started, I think, 2 years ago. We're doing this in phases. It's really a project that's been being run by the Board of Public Service. It originally was the concern that there were pieces of the facade that would be falling, onto the sidewalk, onto pedestrians. So it's a major safety issue. So we basically 2 years ago funded it with reversion, budget money, leftover budget money to get a study in. And BPS got the engineering report. It was a bigger issue than anybody ever thought it was. Now it's, included, infrastructure things like roof replacement, and, other structural fixes. I don't know if Lewis has any more to add, but so BPS has provided priority phase work, and we're just trying to follow that. So our request for fiscal year 27 to continue with the next phase is 5.1 million. And you can see kind of the phases we are in priority 1 work now. So we'd like to move to priority 2 in the next year.
Again, this is something that I think that, Rich Bradley brought up, and I think Mr. Butler brought up as well, is that this is sort of a pay me now or pay me later proposition, because this is affecting, we're getting water, we're getting, this is sort of an issue that is going to affect really the life of this building, whether you really intend to be able to use this building as a courthouse, because the failure to be able to address this not only is a public health issue in that parts of this building are going to fall off, but there's also this issue as to whether we have, as City Hall probably has, we're having leaks everywhere. Leaks cause mold. Mold causes health problems, and then also infrastructure problems that we have to fix. We have to not only fix the leak, but we have to fix the damage that the leak causes in these buildings. So this structural building is probably very similar to what City Hall has been dealing with.
And then the third request for capital improvement funds is juvenile court unit door modernization. So just a little background for the committee. Like I said before, typically our circuit houses and detains 30 to 40 youth at any given time in the juvenile detention facility. A few years ago, there was legislative change to essentially raise the age of delinquency from 17 to 18. So we did assume responsibility, jurisdiction over 17-year-olds, which we didn't before. It has increased our detention population that used to be about 12 to 15. So it's pretty much doubled the population. So while we have, we've worked with the city, and we're able to get more staff to handle the youth in juvenile detention to increase safety after this legislative change. Kind of the next phase for us to recommend is opening another unit. So we have a lot of space in detention, but not a lot of housing, modernized space. We have, I think, 5 units open right now.
Let's see, 2, it's about 5.
Yes, so we have 5 current units. And if you can imagine, when you have like a staff to youth ratio, it's currently, the standard is 8 to 1. So that's the state standard. But we found with the older youth who are, a little bigger, a little more mature, sophisticated, we need to add staff, which we have done. We've gotten allocations for that. So the next phase would be to open an additional unit. So open that. What we have here is pictured one of the older units. And in order to do that, we have to make the lock system. So you'll see on the top pictures, it's best to see in pictures, you'll see the current lock panel in the unit or pod that we're proposing to upgrade. And then you'll see the corresponding outdated door. It's a metal door. It doesn't have any kind of electronic mechanism or computerization to it. And it's not as safe. It's operated essentially by keys, like a key lock, correct? This is very, very antiquated. It's really not safe for the staff or the kids to house them. It would be irresponsible for us to open this unit. So if you see the lower pictures, that's of a current unit that's in use. You'll see the control panel has a lot more features to it, and you'll see, most importantly, the examples of the doors. There's a green light, red light to show if it's locked or unlocked. There's automatic locks from the control panel. Without getting into much of the security ins and outs of it, that's kind of the standard now for housing youth. So in order to reduce staff to youth ratio, we'd like to open this other unit. so that we have smaller numbers of kids on each unit. They can move more freely. They can do more, activities, and we'll have staff. It'll be a generally safer environment for everyone. So under that request, we've asked for $900,000 out of a quote that we've got from our vendor. So it is, there's a very long list that this committee is considering. It's exhaustive, and I know from years working with the capital committee, there's just not enough money. So there are some of the projects that are marked critical on the list that this committee has in the red column that we've identified as perhaps not critical, or we've already resolved them. So for instance, that first one, the toilet room ventilation in the civil courts building, that could probably be moved to needed, given the breadth of the projects that we have going on. The new water service line at civil courts, we don't think that is critical. There was an evaluation done. The service lines aren't that old. The sound and Wi-Fi upgrade. You heard extensively about our modernization project. That will not be needed if the modernization project is funded. The Carnahan replacement of supply and waste piping, that's currently in progress. I don't know if we need additional money for that. No. The Carnahan revolving door replacement, we've already repaired it with other funds that can be removed from the list. And then lastly, the family court detention, juvenile detention fence, those upgrades, that project has been completed. It was funded with other funds, so that can be removed from the capital list. And then, as Judge McGraw had stated before, we don't want to leave the committee without, kind of a look into the future. As we've said, the facade and the courtroom modernization project, we're trying to do in phases, and do them efficiently and using the funds responsibly. Another project that we see on the horizon is the Cahill or civil courts building fan coil replacement. As part of the HVAC system that we currently have is obsolete. And we can see in the next few years that this will move into a critical capital project. We're currently waiting on an inspection, or assessment from a vendor to see exactly the extent of the system replacement. I mean, it's just essentially we're currently in a building with an aging system, and it's where the repairs are becoming more difficult with the parts and like a lot of other things on the list.
And so the place, when it was installed back in 94, 95, they used some old obsolete equipment that was put in here. I think it was I got a deal for you. We'll just put these fan coil units in, and the way they were put in, it was put in with very small lines, which over the last 30-some years come clogged with junk. They have a lot of 90-degree turns and even 180 turns, and it's causing us real issues.
Right.
This is a problem that I'm hearing from jurors on. I'm hearing, and as well as judges, and I've experienced it myself. But it comes again. This is the kind of thing that until I was a presiding judge, I had no idea the extent of this issue. But because I remember trying cases in this courtroom where we had air conditioning units in windows, where we would during the summer sometimes have to turn them off so the jurors could actually hear the testimony. And so this is not something. This is what I get from Lewis, is that we sort of patchwork this problem. I'm not going to be the presiding judge next year. I'll probably be retired before this issue gets fixed. But this is going to be a problem moving forward, because it not only is an issue as it relates to juror comfort or actually being able to enact business in there. We had a juror contact me to say there were these pipes that were banging and that we couldn't even hear what was going on in court. And it was based on condensation that was left. And so I've been all over Lewis about saying, can we do this as a preventive maintenance problem? And then he brought it to me. He's like, look, here's why we can't do this on a preventive maintenance. And this is why this is an issue that's going to raise its head everywhere in this courtroom eventually, or courthouses eventually, is that they're outdated systems. And they probably, at the time they were put in, there wasn't a future look at what we were going to face eventually. I had Amanda put this slide in because I think it's important for this committee to know this is going to be a problem, because as you all know, this is a health issue as well. Whether courtrooms are too hot or too cold is affecting the people that actually have to work in those courtrooms, not to mention the jurors that are in those courtrooms. So again, this is something that I actually had to put in, knowing that I was never going to see the solution to this issue, but it is something that I think the advisory committee should be aware of. And then I can't imagine that this is solely an issue for our 3 court houses. I imagine this is a problem for a lot of city buildings, but it's going to be a large ticket item.
I didn't know if there were any questions. I didn't check the chat.
I will offer this. I am very proud of what we've done so far here, and I welcome the opportunity if anybody on the committee wants to come and have a tour through this court house. I would welcome the opportunity to take you through, to show you what we have here, and show you the good things and as well as the bad things.
In terms of a couple questions I saw in terms of the deck. Everything's being posted on the website. So the presentations, both this presentation and the latter presentations you'll hear this evening, will be on the website. So you just click over there. Let's see, do we have any other chats? I don't see any other hands raised. Oh, I do see a couple hands raised. Mr. Odell.
Yes, you said structural problems in the civil courts building. Could you be more specific about that? Is it just?
I would be glad to answer that one, Amanda, if that's okay.
Oh, sure.
So this is Rich Bradley again. So that is a steel frame structure. And what you have there is you have stone face panels that are attached to the steel frame. They are attached by metal tabs that go in and attach to the frame. And over the years, the joints have deteriorated in the mortar. Water has infiltrated just like the judge described. And then what happens is it rusts those tabs out. And literally, some of these very, very large panels have moved and shifted. So one of the very first things that we did was an exterior survey of the building with a structural engineer here in town that specializes in that, in old historical structures. And, their report came back and told us that, the mortar all needed to be replaced. The panels needed to be reinforced, all the connections and things of that nature. And so that is the facade of the building. Now, the other thing about civil courts building that I want you to know is the green roof that is so beautiful with the sphinxes up on it. That is called a zagorate roof. And so part of that $5.1 million that Amanda referred to is about $4.5 million to do a total replacement of that zagorate roof and get it sealed up. Metal roof, a lot of joints, a lot of leaking places, and we need to preserve that steel frame structure. Did that answer your question, Bill?
On the support, yeah, I've got a follow-up question on the backup. How do you get to the steel brackets with it? Do you have to go that from the inside?
Yes, sir. That's exactly correct. You go on the inside, you have to locate them, chisel the plaster out. It's almost like potholing in the street. And then you have to do all the remediation from inside the structure, pull them in, tighten them up, secure them, and then do all the masonry joint work on the outside.
So there's no backup masonry to those stone panels.
I'm not going to say there's no backup to it. I'm not looking at a detail of it right now, but I would tell you that those face panels are, the major exterior of that building, just like, any kind of face panel building would be today. I really hate to get into the detail of telling you how it's constructed without pulling a detail and looking at it. But I mean, I'm sure there is masonry behind the actual face panel, but it is a tremendous job. And just to give you an idea of what we're talking about here, this first phase, we've already done about $1 million. This is about 5.1 for the remainder 1B. Then we have phase 2 over the next 1 to 3 years, which is 7.3 million. And then we have phase 3, which is after, which is another $5.1 million. So this has all, again, been studied and documented and recommended to us to do. So we're trying to get the most critical and dangerous areas taken care of immediately.
If I could ask one more question. You mentioned in one of the slides how inefficient the mechanical system is. I don't know whether it's still around. I suspect not in the present administration, but there had been significant federal grants for improving energy efficiency. Have you had any chance to look at any of those in the?
We have. So we've done a number of Department of Energy grants. We put in building automation systems. When we replace HVAC units, we put in the highest efficiency rated units that we can. I mean, the reality of it is a little bit that, you're talking these big, huge, fancy old buildings that are 100 years old that have, high ceilings, little insulation and things along those lines, as well as all the windows and things that are in there. So yes, we do look at all that when we are working in those buildings.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Along
Thank you.
along the same lines as it relates to the court modernization, we were allocated by the state house, I think $3 million for court modernization that Governor Keogh just struck out of his budget. So we are attempting to look at other avenues for funding sources for these things.
Mr. Butler, your hand's raised.
Yes, thank you. Judge McGraw, a question, and this might be just hearing what you just said about, looking for monies from the state. Would the Department of Justice have any interest in providing a grant?
Well, actually, it was Gabe Gore that was sort of the impetus. That our circuit attorney was the impetus in the state house to get us the money from the state. It's difficult to know from a federal standpoint as to what kind of money we could get from the federal courts. I don't know that we've looked at that. Gabe would be the perfect person to do that, as he was an assistant U.S. attorney for a long time, and may have relationships with the Department of Justice for that, because that was sort of Gabe's take on it, was that this was a public safety or a public that to be able to prosecute cases effectively in these courtrooms, these court modernization was needed, and he was sort of the push behind that. I'll be happy to talk to Gore as to Mr. Gore as to whether there's any sort of advocacy to that, whether and maybe Hawley or Schmidt might be able to help us in that regard. We would look for money anywhere. We've turned.
That's my point.
And that's the thing, is that difficult, I mean, there's a lot of the members of the, I don't want to say the Missouri Association for Trial Attorneys is generally considered a plaintiff-oriented, but and they have made inroads to that. But the trouble for us, Mr. Butler, is that we can't receive money from one group, and if it's not, it's sort of a non-associated plaintiff or defendant group. I mean, I think it's well worth, and I have advocated to our bar associations as to, like, this is something for you, and I think that I have advocated to that, and I think possibly there is that long story short, we have our hand out to anybody who's willing to help us in this regard, because I think it is something that benefits both the criminal defense bar, it benefits the state, it benefits the plaintiff's bar, it benefits the defense bar. I'm very sensitive to accepting money from the plaintiff's bar, only because we've already been designated as sort of I hate to even say this out loud, a hellhole, or the Chamber of Commerce has sort of considered us. So I don't want to give an appearance that one side or the other has helped but so most of my advocation has been through the Missouri Bar and through the Bar Association for St. Louis to see if we could get that funding. But it's an ongoing process. So I think it's important for you to know is that we are not relying solely on the city's help. We are trying to get because I think this is so essential for the effectiveness of the courts to have this modernization completed. And I've gotten a lot of great feedback from the Bar Association, and I'm continuing to advocate that. And that is sort of why we're doing this in phases. I'm hoping that we can get to a point where they say, look, this is that we can get to a point where we can finish it off. As Amanda said, we had 6 courtrooms done. We're hoping to have another 6 courtrooms done by the end of May or June, and that will get us to 12 courtrooms. If we can get, we can get to a finishing point where someone else can help us out. It's not lost on me. We're trying to do that.
Thank you, Judge. Rich, on that note, given all the asks we just saw in this deck, is maybe and I'm not advocating for the entire advisory committee, just, kind of putting this question out there, is putting a roof on the building at, $5.1 million going to, stop some of, I'm going to call it, the general erosion of the condition of the building, and, put all our eggs in that basket? Or, do we want to peanut butter it out and, continue to address the roof on a piecemeal basis?
So the Zagorate roof is a little bit different than the slate roof at City Hall. It's a pretty much all or nothing proposition. This is phase 1B. I would recommend highly that this $5.1 million happen as soon as possible, whether this committee funds a part of it and other monies come from somewhere else. I think, with the structural engineers report, we have absolutely got to stop the water infiltration, because it's only making the situation on the face panels worse and creating all those other issues that, the judge and Amanda talked about. So I'm advocating that $5.1 million for the roof and the remaining of phase one, which is the worst structural panels, be funded in this round.
Understood. Thank you, Rich.
All right, any other questions on courts? Yes, and Judge McGraw, yeah, I will also be anxiously awaiting other participants in the funding equation of all these projects as well. Any other questions for courts? All right, thank you, Judge McGraw, and thank you, Amanda, for presenting on the court buildings. We're going to move to our next topic, which is also a lengthy need topic, city fleet vehicles. And Rich, you want to introduce your folks on that?
Sure. So thanks, Paul. So speaking tonight on the city fire department vehicles, the city police department vehicles, the non-emergency fleet, which is all of the service vehicles of the city, and on refuse will be Commissioner Josh Cambich. Just to give you a little background on Josh. Josh is very new to this game. He started as the Commissioner of Equipment Services in November. But I do want to tell you that Josh is a longtime 20-year engineer with the Board of Public Service. As I said, when I was hiring a commissioner for equipment services, I don't need a wrench turner. We have over 100 of those that are very skilled, and they do an outstanding job every day. What I need is a manager who can manage their shops, manage their time, manage the fleet, and manage the funding that we get. And Josh does an outstanding job of doing that. He has my full confidence, and I'm going to ask Josh if he would present now on the fleet.
And before he gets started, if you remember from the inventory, that was a big, long list. And what Josh has done is sort of narrowed it down to what is the most critical of the critical. And that's what he'd like to discuss. And I'm pulling it up on screen now.
Well, good evening, everybody. And thanks, Rich and Paul, for the kind words. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, Paul, you're right. Capital lists are kind of a work in progress here. We've received a lot of feedback from all the operating departments and kind of honed in exactly what they need. As time goes on, we're going to refine a little bit more. And what I'd like to talk about now is just what we've found so far. First of all, I'll start with the fire department. They've requested 8 Command Tahoe replacements, no addition to the fleet, just replacing older vehicles. And it looks about $616,000 total. 4 ambulances. 2 ambulances are going to be reframed. They have some older ambulances where the box is good. They're going to get new chassis. And 2 of the ambulances are actually going to be funded from other sources. And so we're estimating about $400,000 total for the 2 reframes. We've got a 100-foot platform truck replacement. It's replacing a 2017 platform truck. And the estimate is $2.7 million. There's 2 77-foot quint replacements. Replacing an older 75-foot quint. One is being funded by other sources. And so the capital need for that is $2.2 million. There's also 1 pumper replacement. It's replacing an older unit, and that's also being funded by other sources, so that's not a capital need at this time. There's a request for 2 15-passenger van replacements. They're replacing older vans that are at the end of their useful lives, and we're looking at $120,000 total for those. There's 1 heavy dump, snowplow, and salt truck replacement on the list, and it's also replacing an older unit. It's used for snow removal at firehouses and facilities. And the capital need for that is $100,000. And finally, for the list for fire department, there's a 1 service truck replacement. It replaces an older unit, and the estimate for that one is $75,000. Total request for fire department is $6,211,000. And we find that to be incredibly reasonable, to be honest. Just looking at the capital needs list that I have currently, they have critical needs of over $50 million. So we still have a long way to go with the fire department. And as Paul is showing now, here's a picture of some fire trucks that have been in accidents and have been surplused. Staff does is they go through and just kind of use the old trucks as a pick and pull, try to save funds, just try to make the fleet just last as long as possible. I hate to put it like this, but we drive them till the wheels fall off, and that just doesn't go for the fire department. It goes for every one of our vehicles.
I was going to ask, Bill, Odell, you had your hand up. Is that
Yes.
current? Okay, go ahead with your question.
On average, how many miles do you have on a fire truck or any of these vehicles when you have to replace them?
Oh, it varies greatly, to be honest. It really just depends on the damage they incur. This particularly fire trucks, they see a lot of service just sitting. They actually don't really accumulate a lot of a lot of miles. It's a lot of hours. And yeah, it varies tremendously. And, I'm still new in the department, so I don't really have that data, at hand right now. I could do a little bit more research, but yeah, from what I've found so far, it does kind of vary widely.
So one of the things about fire trucks I'll mention is, excuse me, you heard the chief mention the other night, we run them for about 10 years in frontline service. Then we move them to secondary backup service for about 10 years. And after 20 years, like Josh said, they pretty much use them at the shop for pick and pull. So when we surplus whatever's left at the end of the day, sometimes the surplus cost might be scrap material for $2,000 to $4,000 to $6,000. So I will tell you, we don't get rid of them until we've ran them twice through their useful life and scavenged everything off them we can use.
Thank you.
Okay, great. And yeah, I guess we can move on to the police department. Now, this is an interesting one too, with the state control over the police here recently. We don't know exactly where the funding is going to come from. So I'll just briefly mention that they've requested 50 Scott Tahoe replacements. They also replace older units, and the current budget is 2.7 million total for all these units.
Yeah, and just so for everyone else's, yeah, that was the request we received as part of their operating budget. So that's where that number is. I know there are other vehicles that they talk about replacing, but that seemed to be their priority.
And moving on to other city vehicles, we've received a lot of feedback from the other operating departments, and I'm just going to kind of go through a list here of the departmental requests we've received so far. First on the list is Forestry Division, 1,785,000 total for one front loader, 6 1,500 4x4 crew cab trucks, 6 2,500 4x4 crew cab trucks with snow equipment, one grapple truck, one water wagon, which is a trailer for performing water in fields and whatnot. And then also 4 5,500 crew cab stake trucks. Next department on the list is Parks Department, and we have 818,000 total for parks. They requested one rear loading refuse truck, 4 2,500 4x4 crew cab trucks with snow removal equipment, 5 zero-turn mowers, one box truck, and one one-ton dump truck. We've also have a request from the city attorney's office. This has actually been out there for a while, I've come to find out. And they have a request for 5 replacement staff vehicles for a total of $175,000. Street director's office, $140,000 total, 4 replacement inspector vehicles. Traffic division, $460,000 total, 1 paint crew, 4,500 truck, 6 inspector, 1,500 trucks, and 1 supervisor, 1,500 truck. Towing division, they have a request for currently just 1 skid steer at $125,000. Streets department, total of $495,000, 2 2,500 crew cab trucks with snow removal equipment, 1 3,500 crew cab truck, and 2 replacement skid steers at $125,000 each for a total of $250,000. BPS construction, $210,000 total, and that's 6 inspector vehicles. Facilities management, $120,000 total for 2 carpenter vans. Equipment services, 1 2,500 crew cab chop truck, $110,000. And the total I have so far for other city vehicles is $4,438,000.
Hey, Josh, just so I'm clear and I understand. So this is a different priority list than the original one we had issued. If you have that
Yes.
list format, could you send that to me so I could post that also online with that? Because I only have the gross number here as opposed to that detail.
Absolutely, Paul. Yeah, I can get that to you tomorrow if that'll work for you.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I'll post that at the same location where everything else has been posted. Now, in refuse, we have very specifics here, and you can go through there.
Yes, and lastly, for refuse division, we have a request for 5 alley trucks, totaling $1,830,000. 2 raw cart trucks, totaling $872,000. 1 rear loader for $268,000, and 2 supervisor 1,500 trucks for a total of $100,000. And the total for refuse is a little over $3 million at $3,070,000.
And to give you a little history of the refuse, and the reason why we broke this out is if you remember when the refuse fee was increased a number of years ago, I think 2017, a portion of that increase was allocated to replace refuse vehicles. Now, it didn't cover the whole replacement cycle, but it did contribute about a 1.8 million a year. So in addition to whatever capital funds are allocated to replacing these refuse trucks, we also allocated $1.8 million out of the operating budget to supplement that, and that has gone a long way in terms of getting our refuse fleet at least closer to its normal useful life. Of course, anytime you have accidents and things like that, broken mirrors, things that take them offline, then it becomes a repair issue rather than a replace issue. But it has gone a long way towards keeping our refuse fleet a little bit better, closer to useful life cycle. And this request and ask is to get us to keep us at that point. And I didn't know what Josh, whether you wanted to discuss it. I had some of those your pictures you sent in there.
Yeah, sure. This is just pictures of our older fleets. There's a couple of surplus vehicles in there. Yeah, just kind of showing the state of the vehicles. Again, we like to drive them till the wheels fall off, get our best bang for the buck. But yeah, we're reaching a point of critical mass, to be honest. As our aging fleet, continues to age, we're going to see increased maintenance costs, and we want to maintain the fleet just as much as possible to provide the city services that we need to provide for the citizens.
Right. Anything else on fleet?
That's all for the group this evening, Paul.
Okay, great. Any other questions on fleet? All right. Thank you, Josh. We also have, do we have the street director on?
We do.
Okay, Mr. James Jackson from the streets. Let me pull up on screen another presentation. And unlike when we talked streets and bridges before, but those were particularly the infrastructure related to streets and bridges. But there are some other facilities which fall under the street department that they oversee and contributes to their operations. And those were some of the items that you saw on that municipal building list, that category G, I believe it was. And so we do have the street department here, James Jackson, Director of Streets, to discuss those items. And I've just pulled those up on screen. So I'll give the floor to you, James.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Good evening, everyone. They save the best for last, so we promise we won't keep you all night. What we wanted to talk about here tonight are the 3 items that you see listed on screen, which is a $6 million request for the relocation of our towing operation, $600,000 request for our South Refuse Station repairs, and another $100,000 for the refuse division to replace makeup air units and exhaust fans in the office building. To start with the tow lot, let me give you a little history about our tow operation. Our tow operation consists of 16 tow trucks with 31 staff members, of which 16 of those should be tow operators. We are currently operating at about 60% personnel for our tow operators, simply because we are not paying them at a level that's equal to their peers in the private sector. In fact, we're about 25 to 30% lower than our peers in the private sector. In addition to that, their team members are operating out of a facility that has all but been deemed it's all been but deemed unoccupiable. And why is that? After the tornado last year, they had a series of events to occur with that facility. They lost their power. They lost facility integrity, and they've been operating out of that facility for a while now. And we've been trying to piece it together to keep them in the facility, but to no avail. And we really need to move them so that they can be in a place where they can conduct their business in a reputable manner, and more importantly, be able to service the citizens that come to retrieve their tow vehicles out of the city. Now let's get to the meat of this. The vehicles, we actually tow about 9,000 vehicles per year. And as a result of that, we generate anywhere from 3.5, 4 to upwards to $6 million on an annual basis. We are not yet an enterprise fund, but I am definitely moving in the direction of having a conversation with all of those required to talk about the possibility of becoming an enterprise fund, simply because we are a revenue generator. Right now, we have an opportunity to move our location, which is at about 80% capacity from where it is now, in a somewhat secure environment, to a location in the city, just, I believe, north of its own location, that's about 3 times its size. The current size or lot is somewhere in the neighborhood of 7.5, 8 acres, on which currently rests about 835 vehicles. The lot itself has a capacity for almost 1,100 vehicles. We're looking at a location that is about 31, 32 acres, which will do much more in the way of allowing us to organize our operation, safely stow the vehicles, keep our tow operators safe, as well as place a facility on the property that our support staff, our operating and dispatch staff can safely occupy, and that we can service those residents who are coming to retrieve their vehicles, and as a result, increase our current revenue from the $6 million upwards to, well, the sky's the limit. I mean, if you heard the story this week, we don't know how factual it is. We have not done any fact checking, but according to the Treasurer's Office, there's capacity out there for us to have a revenue generation of about $30 million just based on vehicles that have not been towed. If we find ourselves in a position of being able to acquire this new property at $6 million, we will much more than return our investment to the city in about 2.5 to 3 years, just based on the revenue generated. In addition to that, and based on my previous comments, we will be asking to transition that operation into an enterprise fund, so that we can then pay our tow operators at a comparable level, so that we can compete and we can fully fund all 16 of the tow operator vehicles and equipment, so that we can then again increase the revenue stream there for that operation and continue to put more money into the city's coffers. So we actually have the potential of becoming a high-level revenue generator for the city with the approval of this request. In addition to that, the South Refuge Station, the $600,000 that we're asking for miscellaneous building repairs, folks, what we're asking for here is just the funding to restore this facility to a place where people feel that they can come and actually be in not a comfortable environment, but an environment that allows them to transition out of their work clothes into their street clothes to go home. I don't know what your operating conditions are in terms of what you transition into or out of when you go to work and when you're leaving work to go home. But I got to tell you, I came on board in November of this year. And when the weather turned really cold, that facility was almost inhospitable. You could not We had people working in that facility at 0 degrees and below. Their locker rooms, I would not go in. Their restrooms, I would not go in. All that we're asking for with this $600,000 is to give your city workers an environment that they can actually function in and do the jobs that we're paying them to do on a daily basis, and putting together your garbage containers as well as your bulk and illegal dumping crews, so that they can get the jobs done that they need to get done on a daily basis, and feel like the people that are responsible for their operating environment actually care something about them. Most importantly, the city residents care something about them. And we've asked for the 600,000, and I am looking for those funds wherever I can within my budget. But it has also been placed here as an ask in the Capitol's critical needs project, and I don't mind coming and defending the ask here, because it is something that, as I said before, if you were to walk into that facility, you would not want to stay in it. In fact, one of the things that I did was I asked all of my supervisors on a particular Friday to meet me in that particular garage, and we worked out of that garage for about 6 hours. And after they got done freezing and pulling their hands out of their pockets, I asked the question, you don't like being here. You won't stay here. Why do you think it's okay for your people to be in this kind of condition? What we're saying is we need to treat our people like we care about them. We can't pay them comparably to what their peers are being paid out in the private sector. At least we can treat them like we care about them. And they're delivering a service. They are first responders. They pick up your garbage, they pick up your recycling, they pick up your illegal dumping, they pick up tires, they do all of these things. And most importantly, over this past winter, they service your streets when it snows. In addition to that, the refuse division, the 2 makeup air units and exhaust fans that we're asking for are for the office building, $100,000. Something I probably shouldn't say, but I don't have any problem saying it. If I had to give up anything, I'd give up that $100,000. That's $6.6 million that we're asking for. We're not asking you for it. We're asking you to put the city in a position to be able to make more money, so that we can return money back to the city's coffers, so that we can continue to get healthy. That's what we're asking for. If there are any questions, Paul, I'm prepared.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions coming up in the chat. Where is the new property that you're talking about with the towing relocation?
The new property is a couple of, it's just north of the current property. I don't have the address in front of me.
Is that the old MSI location?
It is. It's the old MSI location on the same street.
Oh, street. Okay. And then the second question is, the $6 million only for the property, or would you be able to build everything you need for that cost?
The $6 million that we're asking for right now, we don't know that it's only for the property. There could be additional costs to be incurred, but we know the $6 million will get us close to fully funding everything that we need to relocate the current operation and to begin operating out of that new facility. And
did we have any insurance on the property that was damaged during the tornado?
We did not own that property, as I understand it. So if there was or is any insurance, based on what I know at this point, every effort was made to get the property restored. However, the property owner did not make the effort to do so.
And I see some hands raised as well.
Oh, can I jump in real fast and help the director?
Oh, sure.
So real quick, just so the MSI property, to answer that $6 million question, the city actually owns that property already. So that's not to purchase a property, that's to move everything over and, build a new facility on a property that we already own. The current tow yard that we are in right now, we do not own that property. So we can't do any upgrades on that property as it stands right now.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Bill, you got your hand raised?
Yes, you referenced a place where the staff can change and whatnot. Where is that? It's unclear in your.
That's at the South Refuge Station, Mr. Odell.
So the 600,000 gets them proper facilities.
It starts moving them towards the proper facilities. The situation that they have there at the South Refuge Station is that location or that property was they were supposed to be moving out of that once a lease expired with the bus group that I believe is somewhere in the immediate area. Well, as I understand it, the comptroller's office has extended that lease for another 5 years. So our group is going to be left there at the South Refuge Station unless we find a more suitable location where we will then have to come back and ask for funding to move them from where they currently are into a new facility. But up until that time, we have to retrofit or renovate the current refuge station just to give them a place to be, as the seasons change. This past winter, it was cold. We're coming into the spring, it's going to get hot. They're going to be in that facility during this time.
So with the 600,000, are these places then heated and cooled properly?
Yes, sir.
And what, I suppose you have showers and locker rooms?
That all of that will be done with the 600,000.
Okay. Is that something that when it's done, we're going to walk in as citizens and be proud that we're treating people?
Yes, it will be.
Good. Thank you.
What is the timeline for the new location?
Timeline for the new toll lot location?
Yeah, if it was funded.
If it was funded, we could begin the design process. As I've spoken with President Bradley, and his team is already working with us to identify what moving to that location would look like. We have not really put out any funds because nothing has been approved at this time. But it would require design so that we could actually design the facility properly and secure it properly. So we would be looking at least a 3 to 6 month design process. And from that, another 6 months to actually begin transitioning into the location. So you'd be talking about a year from the time the funds were actually made available until the time we begin transitioning into the location.
Okay. And we do have a follow-up question on the, I guess it's the relationship between the existing tow lot. Since we don't own it and we are a renter, what responsibility the owner has towards the property in terms of making repairs and our contract on that facility. I don't know, Sean, you mentioned that. You familiar with that issue?
Yeah, my understanding is that that property is like being rented for like maybe $1 or something like that. It's a deal that was done years ago. And so I don't know what Rich Bradley probably could speak better, but I think he jumped off the call on what the contract, everything looks like down there.
So it's sort of a long-term rental agreement where it's a token payment, and basically the city's responsible for maintaining the facilities of that location. Is that
Yes.
what you're understanding? Okay. All right. Okay, we've just reached the top of the hour. Do we have any other questions on the streets needs? Okay. Well, this was the final night that we had for. Oh, Bill, you have your hand raised. Is that new or is you? Okay, great. This was the final evening we had for presentations, and so what we typically do once we've concluded the presentations, we want to hear from you all. And we do that rather than having a meeting next week. What I would expect to do is send you out some material surveying information, just asking you, not so much as, because we don't really know what the actual funding level is going to be in total. But we would like to hear from you about what you think priorities are and all these things that have been identified. And so I'll be sending out to you coming this week and asking for some responses are a survey, and it will have a list of many of the items that we discussed in these past few weeks. And we'll ask you to give some input on those. Also ask you to give any input on things that we haven't considered or discussed, of other capital items that you would like us to consider. And we also put those in our notes. And while it doesn't end up as a specific capital budget, what we do is that we take all that information and brief the capital committee itself. And if you follow this in the last few years, it does have an impact on where the capital committee makes its recommendations, considering the input we get from you all. So that would be you're going to have some homework in the next few days when you receive this request for survey. And we ask that you all please respond. The more responses we get, the better, so that we get a feel for where you are in terms of where these projects rate in terms of our priority. Because as I mentioned from the very beginning, there's a big long list of improvements on the list of needed improvements for which we only have limited funding. So when we're facing that situation, what we're left to do is try to make priorities, and your input and how you see things is a factor in how the capital committee makes its recommendations. So any other questions out there? I do see, Bill, you had a hand raised.
So from your experience, you've shared the numbers in the spreadsheet. How often is that the final budget different from that, and what's your guess?
Oh, you're talking about, well, there are a couple of numbers. One, that if you remember the very first night I shared what the projection was for the capital fund in total, that 48, I don't have it in front of me right now, the $40+ million that we had, that's probably going to be close to where we are in total for availability of funds. With that, again, you have to subtract out those which are set, those portions of the budget that are set by ordinance. Now, in addition to that, and I also mentioned this in that very first meeting, we have the potential for a general obligation bond issue later this year of $20+ million. So what I would anticipate is that we may have in total maybe 60 some odd million thereabouts for the fiscal year. But again, a good portion of that, both the parks capital sales tax and the half-cent capital sales tax, are allocated by ordinance to specific things. So there's going to be somewhat, maybe half of that is going to be discretionary. But what this does is, when the capital committee begins to look at these and make recommendations, we always refer back to what those items were. One, as I mentioned, what items were that we max out any matching funds we have, getting the biggest bang for the buck. Those items which are public safety, imminent, critical type things. And those items which you see as priorities as a committee, the Citizens Advisory Committee, and say, hey, this is one of those items that everyone agreed to, and say, hey, look, this is one of those things that we really need to focus on. And those are
let me call you back. I'm trying to correct this situation. I just sent the wrong information.
Director James, Director Jackson, we got you on. We got you on. So that's what we're looking at when we issue these requests for response to the survey, is how you perceive all that given the limited funding.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. Any other questions before we leave you for this evening? Very good. Now, again, thank you very much for your participation up to this point. You will be hearing from us regarding that survey to get back to us. And again, when you get it, please take time and fill it out, because we do take it and sort it. Once we sort out all the information, you will receive the compiled information of how people responded, and that will also be forthcoming in the next week or so. And that's all we got for this evening, but thank you very much for your participation, and everyone have a good night.